In this chapter, we're going to cover audio. And this chapter is a half chapter and it's combined with AI. And the reason is that we just have so much content that we need to cover. We had to choose two topics to combine them into 1 week. Like so many of our other chapters, this could be a full 16-week course just on audio, but we're going to go over the basics and I put together a bunch of resources should you want to go further. So first off, how are we want to break down audio? Well, typically in film and games, audio is broken down into 3 categories: dialogue, music, and sound effects. And since we're going to talk about the manipulation of audio, we're going to focus a bit on music and sound effects. Now, some of the audio basics. There's a lot of terminology connected to audio. And so I've put together a link and a lot of definitions, and I'll define as I go along, but should I skip something or if you need to review, there's a reference section. So let's talk about these 3 vocabulary words because they're going to come up often. Modulation is the modification of an audio file. Attenuation is a vocabulary word you're going to hear also as we go into visual effects. It implies a weakening of force, and spatialization is modification of an audio signal to virtually imply that audio is inside of a 3-dimensional area. So as you move your character around inside of a 3D space, you want to make it feel like the audio is coming from a direct source, and so you can have it change different headphone areas as well as getting weaker. That would be the attenuation part. Sound has measurements in kilohertz, and that definition is a measurement of frequency. It's a number of cycles per second. However, as you move into the digital realm, it's slightly different. It has to do with the way it's sampled. Now, our human hearing range is in 20 to 22 kilohertz, and digital audio describes the kilohertz as a number of data chunks per second used to represent the sound form. That's connected to how it's sampled per second. And the typical sampling rate that you're going to see and that we would advise you to use is 22.05 and 44.1. Now, if these numbers look a little familiar, this is a number that's used for CD-based audio. And you can see it's twice the amount of the human hearing range because there's certain frequencies that some humans hear more or less of. And so the idea is that sampling at twice the amount should accomplish a broad enough range of quality. All right, let's talk about audio inside of Unreal. So now you can import several file types of audio into Unreal, including the common AIF and WAV files, as well as OGG Vorbis and FLAC files. A common question I get is, can you import an MP3? Because those are a typical compressed file type that you can get on the web. You can. MP3s are compressed audio files. You can convert them to a WAV file using the free Audacity program. But I just wanted to mention that there is a slight loss of quality, but it's possible. What I recommend is finding audio that is sampled at 44.1 to 22.05, 16-bit WAV files. Those are quality files that you can use inside of the engine. Another question is sometimes can you import multi-channel like 5.1 audio that's already mapped out inside the audio file to different speakers? That is possible, and I put in a link for a how-to if you have those types of files. Let's talk about the basic sound asset types inside of Unreal. When you import your audio, it will come in and you'll see the waveform for that audio in the file type. And if you just take the file type with the audio and drag it into the scene, it will become an ambient sound actor. And it will play as you drag it into the environment, as well as sound cues. If you drag it right in, it'll become an ambient sound actor. But if you want something more advanced, what you can do is create sound cues, and we're going to go over how to create those, and you can do a lot with sound cues. So essentially, there's a blueprint system inside of Unreal that's connected for audio. There's the ability to add attenuation, modulation, you can change the pitch, you can add randomness, you can do quite a bit of things with sound cues in the sound cue editor. There's also audio volumes. Now, we've talked about the post-process volume and we've talked about interaction volumes. Audio volumes are also available inside of Unreal that you can have audio that just exists within the audio volume. Okay, great. There's a bunch of additional intermediate audio type of information that I just want to introduce before we move on, but I'm not going to cover explicitly throughout this chapter. As virtual reality has become more popular, there's been a lot more research into the HRTF, the head-related transfer function. It describes how your ears take information from the real world and translate that into a three-dimensional sense of, and there's a lot of work being done into figuring out ways of faking that information. So keep your eye out for that. Unreal has a dialogue system. There's new technology called convolution reverb, where Unreal has the ability to analyze a virtual three-dimensional space and modulate or change the audio inside the engine to effectively make it sound like you're inside that space. So if you're in a large cave, it might echo. If you're in a small room, it might make the audio sound more muffled as if you're in a small space. There's also sound fields. More audio that's being done for things like virtual production might use sound fields where there's multiple microphones in an environment, and then those microphones are taken and mixed into a sound field. Okay, in addition, there's also plugins. Unreal has released audio synesthesia, which is the ability to trigger different events or movement based on audio that you might import. Unreal also has access to OSC, or Open Sound Control. And this is a protocol that's used by synthesizers and computers, and Unreal has the ability in the Blueprint system to get access to this data and combine it as a form of control. All right, so we've covered a lot. And now I want to jump into the engine and show the content examples, and then we're going to do some audio inside of Unreal. We'll see you in the next video.